Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. Here behind me are our round bales for the winter for our horses. And we always lose a lot of hay because we let the hay lay on the ground. And as you let that hay, these round bales lay on the ground, they wick up moisture and the bottom of the bale spoils. But I've got a solution today that I want to show you, courtesy of Coyote Tractor. I have secured these decorative racks that are just the right size for holding a couple of round bales up off the ground. And they come from Coyote. And what happened, the old place I used to work, a dealership where I used to work for 11 years, is a pretty major Coyote tractor dealer. And a lot of the smaller tractors come in these crates. And a lot of times when a manufacturer will send out like lawnmowers or any machinery in crates, they ask for them back at the end. They'll give them a serial number and the dealer's responsible for carting them up and getting them back. But these racks are too big and cumbersome, I guess, for them to want them back. And they're the perfect size for a couple of round bales. And they have these, and this one's upside down. They have these nice legs on them. And those are going to get them off of the grass and let the grass continue to grow underneath them. And then we'll put the bales on the other side. And I've got 10 of them. We've got 19 bales. I think each one of these will hold 2 bales. And we've got 10 of them. So they'll hold all of my round bales for the winter up off the ground and keep them from spoiling. And I have my old dealership, S&H Farm Supply, Rogersville, Missouri, to thank for that. I was talking to one of the guys that works there that I hired, and I was telling him that I'd sure like to have some old junk pallets to put my round bales on. And I don't like putting them on pallets that well because the pallets rot and they get moisture in the wood and that wicks up through the bale. He said, I got something a little bit better. He says, we've been getting a lot of Coyote tractors in on these skids. They don't want them back, and we just either somebody uses them to make a table with, or we cut them up and put them in the recycle bin. He said, I've probably got some here. How many do you need? And I said, well, I'd like to have 10. He said, I've got them. So I loaded these up a week ago and hauled them home. And what he did for me was he banded 2 groups of 5, and stacked them on top of one another. So there's 5 banded together right here in a fairly nice little bundle. And then this one kind of started shifting as I was going down the road, and there's 5 there. Now I could tell you from experience, when I picked up the load that had shifted a little bit, it's all my little 40 horsepower tractor wanted to pick it up. In fact, it barely picked it up because I was up high. And of course, the higher you go off the ground, the less lift capacity you've got. And then it also stuck out here. It had these 2 beams here stuck out on both sides. So I couldn't get the bulk of the weights further this way forward. So I couldn't get to all of it that way. And so tractor struggled to pick all that up, but I got it off. And then the bottom one, the tractor picked right up because the load was lower, so that wasn't any big deal. But now I want to take them around back. They've been sitting in my driveway now for a week, and my wife really likes how great they look there, with that natural rust color. And I'm going to take them in the backyard. I'm going to break the bands on them, turn them over and fold them out, and put bales on them, and we'll see what they look like. Let's go. Well, why I'm doing this today, in my experience of feeding round bales over the years, I found out that if you leave them on the ground, you get a lot of waste on the bottom. So the first thing I want to do is to pick the bales up off the ground and to get them on these racks, and so they don't wick up water from the ground and spoil. I don't have optimal areas to store. You want to store your round bales in the sun, so after it rains, when the sun comes out, it dries them out. You don't want moisture to get in the bales and spoil them. And in a perfect world, I would store these in a north-south row with a gap of about 5 or 6 feet in between them. And here's why. The water on a round bale, of course, is going to come down over the top, and it's going to shed the water to the sides and leave a little moisture there to dry out. And if you've got them faced north and south, sun comes up in the east and sets in the west, it's going to dry out the top of that as it goes over. And if you've got them butted together where the sun can't get in, and I kind of have that here, you're not going to get good drying. But what I've got here, I've got a gap between every bale, so they're not butted together anywhere, and so they can get air through them, which will help dry, and also a little bit of sunlight. So if I had the terrain where it was flat and I could run them north-south, that's what I would do. I would have the bales in 2 rows running north and south, and a gap of about 5 or 6 feet in between them, so the sunlight could get in, and anytime it rained and the water came around the edge of it, when the sun came out, it would dry them out quicker. Because you want your hay to not just maintain and store moisture, because that'll make it spoil. Now, getting them off the ground is going to make a big difference, and having a gap in between for air is going to make a difference. Now, having a gap in between, if you're in snow country, you want a bigger gap, because snow will bridge and that'll just wick into the bale over time. But we don't get that much snow here. Now, the way I've got these arranged, there's a gap in between so they can get air. But when I feed them, I'll feed every other bale, so I create a gap for drying, for the sun to come in and dry the hay. But this is the only place I've got in my yard where I can store these, where we're not looking at them out of a window, and it's not in the shade. And so it's not optimal, but it's the best I can do. But if you're wanting to keep your hay as fresh as you can and get as much out of it as you can, leave a gap between the bales. And a lot of people butt the bales together, and I guess if you've got really flat ground, that may work if you can't get water down in there. But the terrain I've got here, anytime I try to butt the bales together, it seems like there's a gap somewhere, and sometimes on top just a little gap, and it'll let water run down and it'll never dry and it'll spoil, and the livestock won't eat it. So I like a gap between every bale, and if you can, north-south rows with a big gap in between to let sunlight in. Appreciate you watching my videos. If you'd like to know more about hay storage, here's a really good video about research that backs up everything I say in this video, and I think when you watch it, you'll see why you want to store hay that way. Thanks for watching.